Hi, my name is Tom.
And I'm Julia.
And we live at 9950 Mary Canyon Road. And we want to just take a few minutes to try and share with you what we think makes this such a special location. So one of the first things that attracted me to this area, we were going to be coming here anyway for a job transfer, but looking at, I like Leavenworth, I like the town, but I really liked being outside of town. And one thing that attracted me here is just this. Listen how quiet that is. You know, we're in a scenic, quiet location, and it felt so right coming into this canyon. And Mary Canyon's actually named for a family, so it's not Happy Canyon or anything like that. It's actually named for the original family that used to have this entire area. And one thing I liked about this property in particular, the property actually goes down this little bit of a grade, and it's everything from here this direction. So it looks like a large piece of property, but it's actually very manageable. A lot of the properties here will actually run for like 20 acres straight up mountainsides. When this was set up, the person who initially did all of this, it's incredibly efficient. I noticed the difference right away. I'd spent about 5 solid days looking at places when we first got into this area. And this by far was my favorite thing. I was really glad. So notice how there's this strip, and you would think it goes back quite a ways, but I'll show you what's really going on in just a moment. The first thing that impressed me, not just about driving up Mary Canyon Road, but this particular property, is I have backgrounds in fire and EMS. I also used to have a commercial driver's license, and we had lived in Alaska for years. I pulled into this spot, and when I look at a location, I'm picturing it in all 4 seasons. This driveway is not incredibly long, so not a lot of maintenance, and unlike so many properties I've looked at in the region, it's flat. It's a huge deal year-round. So this entire area, there's plenty of area to turn around. There's absolutely no grade whatsoever. It's a really good location for being able to plow in the winter, having numerous people, being able to turn around, being able to do projects in this spot. The other thing that I loved about this house, I have 3 generations of my father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all had construction companies. My father retired as a building inspector, and I have some of that background also. When I first looked at this place, I could tell there was something very distinctive and unique about it. So we've talked about the flat driveway right there from the road. It's a fairly quiet area, but one thing I loved about this was we intentionally have let a lot of this maple and cherry grow back in because it's incredibly intimate feeling. Even though it's so close to the road, the house is right there. And you can get right up to it year-round. There's never a problem. If we have older relatives, they have no problem with mobility and getting to the house. The person who built this was a building contractor, so there's a lot of unique features to this house that you would not find in a typical building. It's incredibly overbuilt. There's an awful lot of concrete, and I'll be showing you some examples and why I thought that was important. But it's a 3-story, but it's a walkout. So this basement stays mild year-round. Then every floor actually goes straight out onto a little bit of a level surface. So it's 3 stories, but they all go out to something.
Everywhere I've ever lived, I have to have a garden. And this can be a challenging place to have a garden. It's very, very dry during a good part of the year. And in the summertime, it can be quite cold at night. So some things thrive and some things don't. It's been a matter of experimenting. But this berm I've planted all in perennials, and it blooms throughout the season. It starts in the spring with daffodils, and lilacs come in later. Behind me here, there's 3 different varieties. There's mock orange and serviceberry, so a blend of both native plants and non-native. In here we have thyme and marjoram and oregano and lavender and everbearing strawberries, and these are all blooming at different times. Right now we've got the lavender in bloom. Later on it'll be the mint. So this is designed with an eye to using not too much water and being perennial, so it doesn't require quite as much maintenance as the annual garden does. And it benefits both wildlife and people.
Wanted to share a little bit more yet again about this area. Julia had mentioned earlier about her garden plot down here. It's got all the abundant sunlight, but the thing I liked about it is we can use that for parking. I can park some of the vehicles out of the way if I'm doing some big projects out here. We also can use it for pushing snow in the winter but this whole area, as far back as you can see there's 3 vehicles there. It doesn't take up almost any room whatsoever. So incredibly large parking area. This is probably my #1 reason for enjoying this location. When we first looked at this, it had one light inside of it. It was uninsulated. This had been used as a welding and metal shop. It's set up, you could either do metal work in here, you could run a welder in here, you could also hook up an RV. It is set up for all that, but it hadn't had much else done to it. It was just being used for industrial work. So what I did is I spent several months, I insulated all the walls, I insulated the ceiling, I put up all the OSB, I added outlets all the way around it, I put in all these LED lights, I even insulated the doors. There's 3 overhead doors. So we can run a full-size dump truck through here. We've done that with our community plow. What I love about this, it's got a double wood stove, and with the LED lights, I can often come in here anytime year round and work on projects.
One of the interesting features about this house is it was built by a builder for himself. And he was a contractor and often had extra concrete at the end of pours he was doing elsewhere. And he would have things formed up here and have his crew come out and pour the remaining concrete. So there's a lot of concrete, and there's a lot of benefits to that. For one, so much of our foundation is concrete. It helps to keep the house both warm in the winter and cool in the summer. But it also creates a really good barrier to fire. And in this particular space, it provides us with a safe place to put firewood. Wildfires are always a concern when you're here on the east side, and this house is very well protected. As you can see, there's ample room for lots of firewood, and this place does require a lot of firewood if you're heating solely with the wood stoves, which is very possible. There's 2 wood stoves in the house and 1 in the shop, and we can keep all the wood we need right here in this protected, concrete surrounded location.
This is about 2 years of firewood, and because we're able to grow a lot of our own food, have something like this, we have our own well, we only spend about $30 a month on anything with the house. We have electric that comes in, but everything else we supply ourselves by living here like this. So it's incredibly good for the right kind of person who wants to have that lifestyle. The thing is, we both have backgrounds in fire and EMS. We've both done wildland and structural firefighting. The first thing I noticed about this house, besides having that construction background, besides it being so overbuilt, was the fact that there's so many good protected areas. This is large enough. When we first moved in, we actually left one of the cars in here. So we were using this as a little carport, but I realized that this is just perfect for keeping things out of the weather and not having to worry about anything to do with fires.
The firewood that you see here all comes from our local area. A short distance up Mary Canyon or Moon Canyon roads takes you into an area that's private forest land, and you can get permits to be able to go and cut there and take from the slash piles. And that's where all of this wood has come from, just a short distance away.
One thing we've talked about with liking this place because of being able to heat with wood, having all the gardens, we've also raised a number of things here. This area connecting between this large retaining wall and the shop, we normally would have this with a gate on it. We have a couple of barns that you'll see at some point in the back. And we used to have all of this area for raising things like turkeys, for raising goats. So we've had a number of different species of things that we've raised in this location. So right now we have all the fencing still here, all the gates, things like that, but you've got 2 of your walls are always ready to go. There's times we'll just cover this if we're having different types of birds.
This back area here proved to be a really good spot for raising animals. We have this huge concrete retaining wall with a nice sized gap between the wall and the barn, and we have fenced it at both ends and allowed turkeys to run through there, and also goats. We bring the fencing out and sometimes up around this hillside and around this little patch of ground back here to expand the space. Inside this turkey run, we were able to put up netting that was attached between the retaining wall and the shop, and that protected the birds from predators like golden eagles and owls. This whole area proved to be really good for goats too. As you walk around, you'll see there's always shade in one spot or another. And this barn is set up so that we have dual doors, so even in the wintertime when the snow starts piling up, You can always crawl through the top if you have a big snowfall. But this is a convenient little door for keeping animals inside as well. And it's good for storage if you don't have animals. A portion of the property is on the other side of the road. We're standing on it right now. This is our neighbor's electrical box, and we have an entry going into a pathway. It's partly concealed. We zigzagged the trail so it's not obvious to people who aren't familiar with the area, and that way you don't have trouble with people going down there without you knowing about it.
We also have backgrounds in education. We also have backgrounds in things like archaeology. What I loved about this location is this is like a hardware store and grocery store. We've encouraged a lot of the vegetation that's on this south side of the road. The reason we've done that is it's things we use for projects. It's also things that we use for food that naturally occur in this area. Our center line of our property comes right to the center line of this creek. So we're able to have access to the creek legally, and our well is about 80 feet below the line of this water table. So we always know we're gonna have good water, and that was really important to us also.
This creek has never dried up, even in the hottest summer when we've been here. In addition to the lower access that you saw, we also have the second level access. This road that goes along here is on an easement to our property that goes up to our neighbor's house. And as you come up that road, you can turn onto the secondary driveway. From here, the drive goes all the way over to the concrete slab under which we had all that firewood, and you have access to the middle floor of the house. This is really handy if you have a visitor who can't get up and down stairs, because you can get them onto the main level of the house by taking your vehicle up here. Along this section of the retaining wall is where the permanent berry garden is, and down at the end we have some vegetable garden boxes as well.
Several more things that I really love about this spot. We've talked about access being able to come in. It's nice having this really big slab. There's times that we've entertained out here having this big open area. We'll set up canopies. The other thing that we have is this large ramada. I use this in the summer when I'm doing a lot of work. You can see one of my pieces of equipment is still set up. So when I want different lighting than I have in the shop, there's times that I will actually set up a whole bunch of equipment here. I've taught out here, I've done workshops out here. We've also got 2 different outdoor spigots. One is here, so we're running some of the outer garden, or the upper garden from that one. We had a lower one down near the beginning by the front of the house. Also, you can see this is where I have the firewood supply for the inside wood stove to cure. But then one way that we use this ramada by fall is we'll take a bunch of this and stack it here so it's out of the weather during the winter. Another one with the construction background and the fire and EMS background, all the roof part of this is all metal clad roof. I love that as far as maintenance and also worrying about any kind of things that may happen with fire. The same thing, which we mentioned earlier, 3/4 of the way around all of this is all concrete slab of this width. This is incredibly good as far as maintenance and not worrying about fire. No gutters on anything. And the reason with this outdoor spigot, I also keep 1 or 2 hoses ready if something were to ever come up during the summer. I'm overly concerned and protective about things like that. But that's that peace of mind. There's nothing I have to do with this. It's all set up. The one place that we have wood is right here. This had been nothing more than 2x4s laid on end. Instead, I took that out. I put in 16-inch centers, so this is incredibly strong. Now, I put in, this is cedar and this is Trex, but I wanted to set this up so that it's a solid surface. I didn't want rain and snow going through here. So this is 3/4 inch exterior plywood with several coats of Geico decking on it. This is incredibly strong. It's really good as far as waterproofing. We can also use this entire area underneath here for doing things. And I slightly raised up the railing so that we can shovel really easily. Nothing has to go over the top. We just shovel it right down over the sides.
So you can see again the love of the original builder for concrete. Concrete is excellent. It's very protective of the house in case of fires. It holds the temperature steady Right underneath where the swing is a root cellar down in the basement section with this concrete slab over the top of it. Never had any leaking, by the way. This is a great location for having get-togethers in the evening. We have a lot of meals out here. During certain times of the day you'll have sun, but as you can see right now it's beautifully shaded. We've allowed these tall trees to stay because they provide much needed shade during the summertime, but we've cleared underneath of them to make sure that we don't have a lot of fuel in case of fires. We also like to manage for wildlife. We have bird feeders here, hummingbird feeders. We spread seed for the wild turkeys that come through on a regular basis. So this is a wonderful place to hang out and watch wildlife and enjoy the peace and quiet in Mary Canyon.
This is the view that we have many of the evenings. If we're sitting out here, you're looking up at the mountains. This is a combination. Most of what you're seeing is national forest. This large fire pit, this is what the building contractor put in. This is a former manhole cover. And I love some of the character. They repurposed a lot of different materials, but also notice because they took into account their environment, look at how huge this concrete area is. This is set up so even if they're having something going on, it's very safe and fire-wise. Well, they can also have a large number of people doing things out here. Another thing I like about this structure, the person who put this together, this building contractor, they dug this out so that every floor, all three of these, comes out directly onto a ground surface. You're not going up really tall stairs. This is the tallest stairs that we have. So whichever floor, people have access to the outside for any kind of safety reasons, just for convenience. The other thing is there's a complete stone pathway, concrete pathway right back to the fire pit here. And then this bench, what I love about this is all wildflowers up in here, and often the deer, the does will drop their fawns right here. So there's times that we'll get to watch, some of the different deer, some of the turkey, things like that. They'll often just use this little bench. It's close enough to the house that they feel safe and sheltered from predators. The other thing we did is that's all native vegetation here. We then added a lot of organic compost in around this area to try and bring back some of this vegetation. So this is fully intentionally not mowed. We're trying to bring it back so that it's resilient. It's got some native vegetation that's just starting to come back the last couple of years.
This is the porch here at our front entry. You can see this is a nice, cool, shady place to sit on a hot afternoon. We have, again, the dry deck, so you can have rain and snow and it's not going to get into this dry location. Down there you can get a good look at all the firewood that's piled up, and Tom is showing you where we keep our generator. This generator plugs into the basement electric panel and it can run the entire house. When you come in the front entrance, you're coming into the basement floor of the house, the ground level floor, and you're surrounded by concrete, so the temperature down here is very stable. It'll stay cool in the summer and it'll stay warm in the wintertime. It is a ground level basement, so behind you is where the sliding glass door and the window is, and as you get back in this direction, you're getting deeper into the hillside. This has its own wood stove down here. And it doesn't take a whole lot of wood to warm this space up.
The other thing we liked about this area is we have some of the cheapest electric rates in the US. And on Mary Canyon Road, there's no overhead lines. So this has fiber to it, and all the other lines are underground. So we don't have any problems with any of those types of things. Because we've lived in Alaska for years, we also still like having the different types of backup systems. So we have a generator that we can actually hook in to the grid. The way we have that set up is there's a cutoff. So if we switch this, nothing will be going back onto the grid. It will make this house completely self-sustainable. And normally we'll have enough fuel that we can run that for a couple of weeks. We've never had to do anything like that. But this is completely set up so you have your wood stoves and your own power supply and your own well.
The laundry room area is a really good space for certain kinds of projects. For example, I make wine, and this is a wonderful place, very stable temperature to be able to do that. It's also a good place for making soap, which I do as well. This is where your laundry is located, and your laundry sink and the water heater, and right behind the door is where the plug for the generator goes. And at the far wall is our root cellar. This is the root cellar. This is also where the water comes in from the well. Right above us is the concrete slab where we have our porch swing, and behind you is the laundry room. I'll mention that the entire basement is finished, carpeted floor in most areas except for the laundry room or tile, and this is the one room that is not. So it has just a dirt floor underneath these wooden planks.
I was the first one to look at this house. I had driven up Mary Canyon and I pulled into here and I came around on that concrete deck. I looked in this window and I loved the wood. I loved everything that looks like this. I really enjoyed this kitchen. I could picture it in, especially in the mornings doing things in here. One thing we wanted to do when we moved in is we wanted to get all energy efficient appliances. So I switched everything so they're all energy efficient. And all the lighting throughout the house is all LED lighting. That's why the electric is only $30 a year or $30 a month year round. One thing we tried to do is this refrigerator is nothing but a refrigerator. It's not a refrigerator freezer. This way, when we're doing a bunch of projects, when we're harvesting and processing things, we have this entire space that we can use as a refrigerator. The other thing we did then is we had this room left over where the refrigerator used to be. So we put a chest freezer in here. So we have all of this chest freezer space and refrigerator space in the same location.
One of the things we really found intriguing about this house is its unusual design with that two-story box in the middle and then the two curving, almost Quonset hut-like sections on either side of it. We heard from our neighbors that the original builder of this house tended to recycle materials whenever he could, and that these curving beams may have been recycled from building an on-ramp on Interstate 5. And he used those curved beams here to construct the house. It gives this room very much the feel of being on board a ship. These bricks as well may have been repurposed. This is a very large center of mass to the house, and it holds heat really well. This wood stove can heat the house very effectively, both this floor as well as upstairs, and it holds the heat because of all this brickwork in the center. There is actually 3 chimneys going up inside of this, one of them for this wood stove, one for the wood stove downstairs, and a 3rd chimney was installed in case somebody wanted to put a wood-burning cook stove on the other side of this. So that's an option for somebody that wants it. We love all the wood that's used in this house. The wooden curving beams along the wall, the wooden siding, and also these very large beams that go across the entire room. These may actually have been milled right here on site. Here on the main floor, there is one small bedroom back here and a bathroom. There's a bathroom on every single floor. And that's a real benefit for people who can't move up and down stairs very often. You can have somebody on this floor that never has to go up or down any stairs. One of the other benefits to having 3 floors like this is if somebody wants to get away and be by themselves, it's easy to do. Lots of space, lots of rooms here. It's easy for people to be together. It's also easy for them to be apart when they choose. This lovely room is the one directly above the living room on the main floor, and you can see the continuation of the wood beams that meet at the crest of this room. And this was my room of choice when COVID hit and I needed to set up at a home office. We do have fiber internet service here, which is wonderful. It's really fantastic. And this made a great space, not only as a spare bedroom, but also as an office. This is the continuation of the chimney from downstairs. So the wood stove is right below you here. That means this floor is always nice and warm in winter. And there's plenty of heat that gets absorbed into this wall and radiated back out into the rooms. So it's very pleasant in the wintertime up here. Even on the top floor of the house, you still have access to the outdoors. There's just a short flight of stairs down from this deck to the fire pit.